What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Disorderly Sports Report podcast. My name is Nick Risner. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Risner, NickRizner. Make sure you check out the website at thedisorderly.com, the best in sports and entertainment. You can find us on Twitter at Disorderly Media, Facebook Disorderly ENT. Rate, review, subscribe, patronize the websites. Do what you can to support the brand. So getting right to it, I'm going to start off with a couple topics because this is Monday, September 24th. And, things have happened since I've done the interviews and the after show and all that. So I wanted to start with the Didi Gregorius injury to the Yankees. Obviously, the postseason's coming up. The Red Sox clinch the AL East. We talk about that a little bit in the after show. And we talk about baseball in general. So there'll be more baseball covered in the after show. But just to touch on this injury, there's a report this morning that it's the same wrist injury that Mark DeRosa had. And, he said that he rushed back into it and it's a big regret of his. And I think he said if he had to go back, he would do it again because there's this pressure to perform for your team. But Didi Gregorius basically woke up this morning. I guess he heard it on a slide. I saw the slide. It didn't look too bad. You can kind of see his wrist get caught underneath him. But then, he gets up, he celebrates with his team. So I don't know. It seemed okay to me. It seemed fine. But obviously, he woke up this morning and they ended up doing an MRI and found a small tear. Now, the argument, I guess, is that he can come back in and he can play and still be productive eventually, at least for the postseason. I don't think there's going to be any sort of incentive to, rush out there and do anything in the rest of the regular season because why would you? You're already in the playoffs. So I guess, you're competing for home field advantage with the Oakland A's, but I don't know. Not really that important. So I'm sure he won't be back until the postseason if he comes back at all. But the argument being made by Mark DeRosa is that maybe he shouldn't come back for the postseason because maybe that could lead to a decline, in his career, basically the rest of his career. And it seems like these wrist injuries with hitters are terrible in particular. Obviously, it's not good for pitchers either. Pitchers are very sensitive. I don't think Didi's a pretty good fielder. He obviously contributes at shortstop, but I think his real skill is the bat that he brings. Now, I think his stats are a little bit overblown just because of the short fence in Yankee Stadium, and I think a lot of his home runs aren't big bombs, so they're barely creeping over. But guess what? The Yankees play in Yankee Stadium, so if you're trying to make an October playoff push, it seems like Didi is a crucial member. He's also sort of a locker room guy, somebody who the team and the fans rally behind. So it's a big loss. If they don't have him for October, it's absolutely a big loss. And you finally get Aaron Judge back, and you got McCutchen and some people that kind of fill out these holes. But I don't know, man. If they're missing Didi, that's a problem. Now, obviously, a lot of teams are dealing with injuries. No major one. I would say that's probably the biggest postseason injury that I can think of right now, at least this late in the season to have to be dealing with this. So. You feel for him, you want to beat the best Yankees team, but then also the Red Sox fan in me is like, I don't know, it's not the end. I don't want him to be hurt, but it's obviously whatever sort of situation helps the Red Sox win a World Series. I'm kind of all for that. So if it seems like a twofold thing where it might be better for his health to sit out in the postseason, and guess what? It's better for the Red Sox chances too. So take your time, Didi, rest, be safe, be healthy, and come back to play another year. But yeah, that's all I'll say on that. Quick shout out to UConn as well, signing their second recruit. We got Jalen Gaffney now, in addition to James Bouknight, I believe is how you say his name. B-O-U Knight, as in Knight in Shining Armor. So Dan Hurley has clearly proven that he has the ability to bring in these top recruits. It's kind of one of the things we're looking forward to. He has good relationships with all these players. He has the name. He's trying to bring glory back to UConn. I think just the switching of a coach in general kind of takes some of the stink of the last few years off. So that's exciting. So shout out to UConn. They're making big waves. Granted, these are all 2019 recruits, but we'll see what he can do with the team he has this year, and what he can sort of establish as far as leadership going into next year. And it seems like next year we could have a real world-class recruiting class coming in. So very happy about that. And then finally, I just wanted to touch on this, the only football topic. Once again, we'll get to that in the after show as well. More football. But the topic I wanted to touch on, because it happened on Sunday again, Clay Matthews, clean hit. They call him for roughing the passer. I don't know what to do. I guess the official call is he landed on top of the quarterback, right? So that's why they did that, and they're obviously trying to protect the quarterback. But if you're a defender, especially a pass rusher, all you really have is from the waist to the shoulders. You can't hit the head. You can't go low. You can't. There's all these rules of how to hit a quarterback. So if you basically lower your shoulder and spear a quarterback in the chest, it's the safest way to do it. They're asking the impossible of these pass rushers to tackle these quarterbacks in this one tiny little window, and then even when they do that, they get penalized for it. So I don't want people to get hurt. I understand trying to protect the quarterbacks, trying to promote player safety and all this stuff. But if you're Clay Matthews, how do you not? How as a fan do you not feel for Clay Matthews? You know, it's unfortunate. I mean, obviously, it was a much bigger play last time. It cost them the game. You know, they would have beat the Vikings, and all of a sudden they don't because there's this rough in the pass that extends the Vikings' drive and ends up leading to the eventual tie. But 2 weeks in a row, hard not to feel for Clay Matthews. I've seen it called somewhat inconsistently around the league, and that's going to happen with any judgment call, but it sucks. It's unfortunate to see. But anyway, that'll do it for the intro. I don't want to talk too much about myself because there are plenty of good interviews coming up. First, our featured guest of the week, Shaun Al-Shatti. So he's a senior editor over at MMAfighting.com. Truly one of the best writers in MMA. He'd been on my old show a lot, the MMA podcast, now defunct. But yeah, he's great. He's a great reporter, great writer. He's getting into podcasting now as well. Just a nice guy. He's crazy. So he's my age. So I think he's 28 or something like that. So it's crazy, how successful he is in his career already at this age. But he's obviously great and accomplished within the MMA world. But it actually all started with basketball. Now, admittedly, hand up, I don't know too much about the NBA. I follow college basketball very closely. Big into football, baseball, obviously, the things I talk about on this podcast, and MMA and all that stuff. I'm into all these sports. I'm, somewhat knowledgeable, at least on all these sports. NBA is a complete black hole for me. For some reason, I don't know. I've never gotten into it. I would say I almost know more about the NHL than the NBA, which is kind of a wild statement. So I brought in Shaun Al-Shatti to help us out. He is very knowledgeable, very passionate about it. Obviously has the background in covering the sport. He's from Arizona, used to cover the Phoenix Suns for their SB Nation blog. But without further ado, here is Shaun Al-Shatti, and then I'll be back with an after show with Nate. We talk about sports topics. But here's Shaun. Enjoy, guys. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Not too much. So first of all, I figured I'd have you on this new show to talk about basketball for the first time ever. We talked about MMA a bunch of times. Big change for us. I'm doing, a general sports podcast, so I figured I'd have somebody on who knows what they're talking about, but I thought you'd be perfect for it.
Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I'm always down to talk about basketball. I love me some basketball.
So I think
it's fun.
Go ahead, sir.
It's a good day to do it too with the Jimmy Butler shit.
Actually, yes, that's on the list. See, I don't know. I'm up on my news. I did a quick research. So the thing is, I love college basketball. Don't watch a lot of NBA, so I figured, I know some things. Obviously, I'm a general sports fan, but I don't know the deep cut stuff. I don't know. I feel like you would have more knowledge on that. And I know we've talked about this too on the MMA podcast, but I don't know exactly. I can't remember. You have some association with writing for the Phoenix Suns, right, or something? How'd you get your start in basketball?
Yeah, that was how I started in this whole game. I got an internship with my first sports writing gig ever. I applied to get an internship with SB Nation's Phoenix Suns blog because I'm just a massive Phoenix Suns fan, Bright Side of the Sun. And I ended up just getting a internship with a similar SB Nation site. It was SB Nation Arizona. And I ended up covering Suns and Phoenix Mercury for like a whole semester. Actually, I think it ended up being 2 semesters while I was still in college. And so, yeah, I actually got my start in basketball.
Do you still follow as closely as you did? I feel like it's almost – so this is our first time sort of getting away from – or my first time getting away from MMA in general. And I feel like – your instant reactions to take a step back, not be as invested just because you're so plugged in when it was kind of your gig. So did you almost have like this point where you weren't really following basketball as much as you were when you were covering it?
Actually, I think because I'm a sick individual, I follow it more now. I don't know how that works, but I think because I'm so in the woods, so deep into MMA, that like when I'm not doing my job, when I'm not covering MMA, I need something else to like focus on, to like focus all my energy on. So it's just become basketball at this point. Like I'm so obsessed with basketball that it is probably unhealthy.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like that's your escape from the MMA world because the MMA is the 9 to 5,
Yeah, exactly. And for us, it's not even a 9 to 5. It's like a 6 to midnight. Like it's just every hour of my waking life. So anytime I can get away and watch some sports and actually have like a stake in something, right? Because like with MMA, you're supposed to be unbiased, so like we can't actually have fun with it. It's more of like it's a job. So with basketball, I can have fun with it, drink a couple beers, watch the game, like root for stuff. Like I don't know, it's definitely my escape.
By the way, and I'm sure we've touched on this before, but do you struggle at all with the unbiased thing? Because obviously you're a human. You were a fan of the sport at some point, so you have these biases before you start doing it as a job. Is that something? It's not hard to hide it, but I mean, inside you must be rooting for certain people and against certain people and whatever. You just have to kind of keep it out of the public eye, right?
Not really. I mean, I think there are always going to be people in this industry that you like better than others. If somebody's particularly nice or somebody's just like, I don't know, we're around this. It's a very close knit group in MMA. So I think you're around these people so much that maybe there are definitely people you like better than others and hope do better than others. But I don't think it's ever really something I struggle with in terms of being biased or unbiased with fight and things like that.
I never even tried to hide it, so I never considered myself a journalist. It was more, doing, I don't even know what you'd call it, like almost like a podcast host personality, whatever it is. So when it came to that world, I never really hid that stuff anyway, but I always wondered if you're in that position where you had to be. And granted, I was never rooting against anyone or for anyone's like misfortune, but there were certain guys you're kind of pulling for, at least from my perspective. So I always wonder, how difficult that is from an actual journalist perspective.
Yeah. I think maybe it's, again, some people you see more regularly, and like I'm an Arizona guy, so I'm based in Arizona, so I'm at the lab often. So like anytime a lab fighter is going, I'll certainly know them better than a non-lab fighter or something like that. So maybe there's a little bit of it, but ultimately I don't feel like it's ever really been something I've struggled with.
Yeah, speaking of the lab, actually, perennial podcast guest, the first guest on this new podcast, Courtney Casey, just moved there, and she loves it there, so... rave reviews from her.
Oh, really? Yeah, Courtney's great. I see her all the time over there. Did you talk basketball with her?
No. So this is like a general sports podcast, and we're gonna get into MMA. I just don't want to lean on it too much because obviously the old podcast, I have this Rolodex of MMA contacts, but in order to sort of remove myself from that, I'm trying to at least limit the MMA talk to like, big pay-per-views, big breaking news, whatever. But she made me promise to have her on the first episode of the new podcast. There's like this whole rivalry with her and Wonderboy and MMA Mad, and she was like, all right, you have to have me on before Wonderboy. And it's a long story. But so she came on the first episode of this podcast for that. We did talk MMA. That's pretty much, by the way, she played soccer in college, but the times I've tried to like lead her into other conversations about other stuff, it always goes back to MMA. It's obviously her entire life. She just loves it. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's get into the news of the day, which will be somewhat old news by the time this comes out. But Jimmy Butler wants out of Minnesota after 1 year with the Timberwolves. It was a productive year. It was pretty much on pace with the stats from Chicago, but he wants out. Where do you think he should go, and what do you think is the best fit for him right now?
So I've been all over this news all day, and you're right. Probably by the time this comes out, I'm sure something will have already happened. But before that happens, I want the Phoenix Suns to be involved in this because this is the perfect opportunity we've been looking for. So he said that he wants to be in Brooklyn with the Clippers, or what was the third team?
I don't even know, to be honest with you. This is an expert analysis I'm trying to lean on you for. So I just saw like the headline story, but I don't know.
There's Brooklyn, the Clippers, and one other team. Regardless, the Phoenix Suns desperately need a point guard, and we've been trying to pry away Patrick Beverley for a while. And the Clippers have like 18 guards at this point. And this is a way for us to facilitate a 3-team trade. So I'm gonna say I hope he ends up in LA with the Clippers, and the Phoenix Suns could somehow get in this whole situation and get Patrick Beverley out of this without giving up too much. That would be nice. Ultimately, though, I think he's going to end up in Brooklyn. That feels like the most logical fit and the most logical trading partner because right now it seems as though it is difficult for Jerry West and the Clippers. I mean, Jerry West is such a good GM that you're not going to fleece him, right? You're not going to do anything with him. He seems very rigid with his trading tactics. So I would think if he goes anywhere, he's going to end up in Brooklyn, but I can also see the Timberwolves holding on to him, man, because it's just like, what impetus do they have to trade him right now? He has to report to camp at some point. Like, camp starts in a week. He's under contract for another year. They're not in any rush. If I was the Timberwolves, there's no way in hell I'm making a Kyrie situation out of this and just punting on it the first offer you get.
So on the flip side of that, then, if you are the Timberwolves and you have this guy who is showing, whatever dissatisfaction with the team or whatever, even if it makes sense to hold on to him from a team perspective, how do you manage that sort of situation where this isn't the place he wants to be?
Ultimately, I mean, he's still a professional, right? Like, he's still getting paid crazy amount of money to be here and play this game in this city. So at a certain point, it's just you have to hold the man to his word. And regardless of if he wants to be here or not, I mean, this is a game that's ages old in basketball of guys trying to force their way to certain spots. At a certain point, he still has a contract and he still has an obligation to show up. So I don't know that there's much he can do other than complain and ask to go somewhere.
Yeah, I always wonder how that relationship works with fans. I'm trying to think back to teams that I've been a fan of, and if a player wants out. And for the most part, I mean, the teams I'm a fan of are usually destinations you want to be at. I guess I'm kind of going through that with Des Bryant and the Cowboys right now, where he's just trashing his former team. But he wanted to be there, I think, and this is more like, just he's salty because they got rid of him. So I don't really know. I feel like that'd be such a tough thing to have a guy actively on your team and root for him, even though he's trying like his very hardest to leave you, basically.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So it's weird too from a college basketball perspective. You take the Nets or whatever. I feel like I associate these teams with the college guys that I rooted for that are now on these teams. So for me, even though it's not a big splash player, the guy on the Nets that I'm rooting for is Shabazz Napier. He just moved there. I'm really excited because I can go see him play live now, and I couldn't before. I mean, technically I could if he was like in town or whatever, but for the most part, like that's what excites me about the Nets. So I think it'd be cool if he was on the Nets because, granted, Shabazz isn't going to start right now, but if he just worked his way in and was passing the ball to someone like Butler, I feel like it'd be such a cool thing to witness.
Sure, although I don't know that Shabazz Napier really factors into the equation as a whole. I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie and D'Angelo Russell are kind of the guys in Brooklyn right now. But who knows? I mean, I feel like there's a good chance they've been trying to deal Dinwiddie for whatever they can get for him for a bit, and he's a nice player on a nice contract. So there's a chance Shabazz Napier could get a little opening there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he averages about 4 minutes a game, so he works his way in. Don't worry about it. So anyway, I guess what I'm getting at with all of this is, does any of it really matter? Because the Warriors swept the Cavs in the finals. They're still the best team in basically the league and of all time. A lot of people are saying you have this ridiculous starting lineup that isn't going anywhere. It seems like they're still the team to beat. Do you think there's another team that can challenge them? Obviously, they struggle with the Rockets a little bit this year, but what do you think the ultimate end result of all this is? Is it just another Warriors championship?
Yeah, no, it's going to be stupid. It's going to be Warriors in 4 or 5, and it's going to be lame. They're going to have 5 All-Stars in their starting lineup by the end of the season. It's all kind of pointless. And so for me, I mean, maybe Boston with their full lineup, if everyone could stay healthy, they could maybe push it to 6. I feel like Houston got a lot worse this year. So I don't really see maybe Toronto, if Kawhi is Kawhi, like legitimate Kawhi, maybe that might be interesting. But otherwise, man, I think it's pretty much signed, sealed, and delivered already, which sucks. But in my case, I mean, again, going back to the Phoenix Suns, like I'm fine with it right now, at least, because if there's a time to be bad, it's at least now is a good time to be bad when you already know the outcome of the league and the next few years don't really matter because you kind of already know what's going to happen. I'm fine with that because we're not going to be good for a couple years. So let's be bad while the result is obvious, and then maybe we can outlast some of these teams. And by the time we're good, there's a chance that there's a little opening there for us to sneak in.
Yeah, by a similar token, you mentioned the Celtics, and the Celtics 76ers, they have these young squads too, where they're right on the cusp, but also seems like the future is bright for them. So if they kind of wait out this whole situation with the Warriors, where they start to see some chips in their armor, it seems like these teams are poised to take over and make a run at it, if not soon, at least down the road. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, at this point, again, the DeMarcus Cousins thing was stupid, but all of it is stupid at this point, man. It's just so anticlimactic and uninteresting. I don't know about you, but I just really don't even enjoy watching the Warriors. It's just not entertaining. I'm a basketball junkie to the core, and I didn't really watch the last couple games of the finals this past year, and it's just, I don't know, man. I can't wait for this to be over. It feels like it's such a lesser accomplishment for what these guys are doing. I don't know.
No, I agree with that. They're that team in NBA 2K they're not allowed to play with. They're too good. It's not fair. It's when you shut off the trade blockers and you can just have every single guy, every star on the team or in the league, be on one team, and it isn't fair. I guess it is because within the rules they all decided to go there. It all makes sense with the salary cap and all that, but it does seem crazy to the point where they're kind of ruining the sport. I know that's a big argument with the UConn women too, but it's kind of true whether you like it or not. It's not as fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's fun to watch at all. And honestly, I could talk for hours on it, but it's diminished my opinion of Kevin Durant. And I guess it feels like it's capped, put a ceiling on what his legacy could actually be. At least as long as he's there, which is super unfortunate because he's probably one of the most unique, really just ultimate, super, super ultra talented guys that we've had in this era. He's probably the second best guy in this era compared to other than LeBron. And now it's just this is kind of what his career is, where it's just all right, man, you choked and then you couldn't beat them, so you just joined the all-time greatest team ever who had just won 73 games. Like, there's no credit to be given there. I don't know.
Is that the fundamental difference between that and then, the threesome with the Heat where LeBron and Bosh go to the Heat with Dwayne Wade?
See, no, it's not even a comparison. Like, people always bring up that comparison. It makes no actual sense because the Heat were not something before that, right? It was just
right.
it was Dwayne Wade, and then they signed Chris Bosh, and then LeBron came in. It was something they coordinated to put together, and that was it. That team was really 3 deep, and then then they were starting Joel Anthony and Mario Chalmers. Like, that was it. Kevin Durant was up 3-2 on the Warriors in the playoffs, and then choked that lead away, and then joined the team that literally, in the 2 years before it, won the title and then won an all-time great number of games at 73 games. Like, that is just so silly on such an absurd, nonsensical level where it's just like, again, you're not this is stupid. It's a stupid thing to say, and people always say, but it's just like, real competitors don't do that, man. Like, you want to beat those guys. You literally could have beaten those guys. You were there to beat those guys. You were up on them. Like, how, I don't understand somebody who can put themselves in that situation where it's just like, I guess maybe we fetishize titles and getting rings and everything like that. And maybe Kevin Durant felt like that was like getting held over him, that he couldn't win a ring. But it's just like, man, you had a long career in front of you, and now I don't feel like people give you much credit for those 2 rings.
No, 100%. Like you said, it's almost like taking the trophy and dividing it 4 ways as opposed to you being the guy that won it. But then also, you don't know, I guess you have to be the man to know this, but do you feel like this is something that, when it's all said and done, is the easier path? He's going to get a shit ton of championships. Do you think that this will bother him down the road, deep down inside, that he doesn't have the respect that, a LeBron or obviously like a Jordan or somebody would have?
I mean, it's tough to say because obviously I'm on the outside. I'm just some MMA reporter. Like, I don't know Kevin Durant. I don't have any insight to his mind. But it certainly does seem like this stuff bothers him more than any real other athlete that I can think of in terms of the public perception of him and how people view him and his legacy. So I think it bothers him immensely, and I feel like ultimately that's going to lead him to leave the Warriors in the next couple of years to try to figure out something else. I mean, Bill Simmons and all those guys are already talking about potential going to the Lakers. I could see that happening. Like, I don't know. I feel like his time with the Warriors is short.
Do you think he's definitely done in OKC, or do you think you could see almost like a LeBron situation where he goes back home?
I have no idea, but I would be stunned if he went back to OKC.
Do you think the Lakers have this future thing? 'Cause obviously LeBron's going there, but you would think that he only has a certain number of years left, and then they're drafting young guys around him, but do you think that the fit for him is LA? That's obviously the city you brought up.
I mean, who knows how many years he has left, right? Like, LeBron is a fucking cyborg, man. Like, it doesn't make any sense that this dude is still doing what he's doing all these years later. Like, you look at the guys from his draft class, the guys who were drafted with him, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Carmelo Anthony, where are they right now?
Right.
Like, Dwayne Wade's on his last season. Chris Bosh is retired. Obviously, he had a health issue. Carmelo Anthony is basically a net negative on a team at this point. And yet LeBron James is still the best player in the entire world. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And the fact that he is still doing this, I wouldn't be shocked if this is a Tom Brady thing and he's just doing this into his 40s. Like, none of it makes any sense.
So let's talk about the Lakers. They were sub 500. They now have LeBron. It was obviously, for obvious reasons, the biggest offseason move of the year so far, and I guess even possible. But what does this Lakers team look like this season with LeBron? I mean,
I'm sure they'll be good. It's tough for me because, like, I'm a lifelong LeBron supporter. I stand for LeBron, like, quite often. And I am also a lifelong vehement Laker hater as a Phoenix Suns fan. I hate the Lakers more than any other team in the entire NBA and probably any other team in most sports in general. So this is a very confusing time for me. I don't know how to feel about it. And I feel like ultimately my Laker hatred is probably going to overtake the LeBron-ness within me. So I don't know, man. I'm sure they're going to be good. I'm sure just because a LeBron-led team can't not be good, he's going to lead them to some kind of success. I could see them being a top 4, top 5, top 6 type of team in the West this year. But I really feel like what we're watching is an unfinished product, right? Like, they have a mishmash of weird vets and young talent, and none of the vets really inspire confidence in you, like a Lance Stevenson or JaVale McGee or whoever else they got. So I could see them being top 6 in the West, especially if Jimmy Butler ends up leaving Minnesota. That leaves another hole there. But I think it's going to be a while before we actually see the whole plan come to fruition with them.
Are the Cavs just dead in the water post LeBron?
I mean, it seems like if they should be, at least if they were smart, that's what they would do. I know they re-signed Kevin Love, but I mean, I just came from I'm not even just came. I'm still in a situation where it's basically a decade between playoff experiences for me, and like the worst place in the world to be in any sport, but especially the NBA, is the middle. If you're just mediocre, that's the worst place in the world to be. You're just doing nothing. If I'm the Cavs, I'm tanking harder than any other team in the league. I'm trying to get an RJ Barrett, a Zion Williamson, somebody like that. Otherwise, they're dead in the water for a while. That team, LeBron left them quite a mess. Like he is a legendary, great player, but he is a bad evaluator of talent, and he left them in a very, very crappy situation when it comes to their contracts and the players they have.
He actually, to bring this full circle, he was the one that encouraged the Heat to draft Shabazz Napier in the first place, tweeting about him, said he really wanted him, and then they drafted him, I want to say in the first round, like pretty high up there, and then LeBron just got out of town. So I liked it. Actually, it was the worst moment for me ever because I think the Hornets drafted him, and then they traded in the first round, and there was a brief 10-minute period where Kemba Walker and Shabazz Napier were on the same team again, and then they weren't, and it was a devastating moment for me. Even just from a video game perspective, just to have him on the same team would have been wonderful, but what are you going to do? But I will say, so we predicted, or not we, the world predicted that the Golden State Warriors are going to win it all, obviously by virtue of winning the West as well. I guess the only prediction to make then, just to wrap up this preview podcast of the NBA season, is who's going to win the East and ultimately lose to the Warriors this year.
I don't know. I feel like it's going to come down to Kawhi. Like, which Kawhi are we going to see? Because if Kawhi is legitimate, Kawhi Leonard, top 5 player in the league, Kawhi Leonard, I don't know that anybody's beaten Toronto. They have a great collection of talent around them. I think it's ultimately going to come down to Toronto and Boston. And like I said, it's going to depend on health, whether Kyrie can stay healthy, whether Gordon Hayward's able to come back, whether Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown are able to make another leap. And it's going to come down to Kawhi. So one of those two teams.
All right, and while I have you, I'll run through some quick, fast-hitter MMA stories. But first of all, I want to say congratulations on the A-Side podcast. I just saw that, researching for this, looked it up. I believe that's your first time hosting a podcast, right? Is it just that first one?
Yeah. I mean, me and Mark Ramondi do that on MMA Fighting now on Wednesdays. It's like the live chat. We took it over for Luke Thomas, and yeah, it's I'm dipping my toes in the water on the hosting side of this. I'm used to being on the opposite side. It's a completely different challenge, to say the least.
Are you enjoying it so far?
Yeah, I would say so. I enjoy challenges. It's been a learning process. I feel like I'm still not very good at it, but I'm getting better, and ultimately that's important. I want to be able to round out my skill set, so it's been a fun experience.
Yeah, I will say, I think anyone is like this, but you're probably your own hardest critic. I just watched the most recent one that you did. We guys were talking about Kid Yamamoto, and I'll ask you questions about that in a second, but I thought you were great. The enthusiasm bleeds through. I feel like obviously you know what you're talking about. This is what makes you a good podcast guest. But obviously I think you probably hear things that annoy you about yourself that other people don't even pick up on.
That's probably true, but I appreciate the kind word, Ben.
For sure. So if you want to just, touch on that and talk about it, obviously Kid Yamamoto, legend of the game, passed away from cancer this week. What are your thoughts on sort of his legacy and what he meant to the sport?
Yeah, man, that's a sad one. I had missed his initial cancer diagnosis until or at least the announcement that he posted until last week. Yep. So this all kind of just happened in a span of a couple days for me. And I mean, I grew up, in middle school, high school, around the early 2000s, and I was super into this sport around then. That was around when I got into it. And that was his peak. That was when I got into this sport, Kid Yamamoto was the rock star in Japan when it came to the lighter weight classes. He was on a different level, and it sucks now. I mean, I spoke a little bit about it on the podcast today, but the reaction I feel like from the fan base when he died was more muted and confused than I expected. And I guess I never really thought about it, but I would say a large percentage of fans today don't really have a connection or even an understanding of Kid Yamamoto, which is not an indictment on them, and it's certainly not a criticism of him. It's just a lot of the fans today came within the past 5 years especially with the Conor McGregor boom. And I feel like I don't know if it's the media or the UFC or just the sport in general, but this sport doesn't do a great job at keeping its history alive and maybe teaching it to other fans, past fans, new fans. But Kid Yamamoto, man, was a rock star. Like he was a true rock star in every sense of the word. Natural bantamweight who was fighting lightweights basically his entire career. And when he walked away in 2007, he was 17-1 and probably the number one pound for pound fighter in the sport, if not top 2 or 3. So I don't know, man. It's really sad.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I guess I agree with you, but I've never thought about it before. That is true. That the history of the sport isn't really kept alive, especially anything outside of the UFC. Like if you fought in Japan or you were part of, even like WEC and a lot of these different promotions that have gone by the wayside or kind of got engulfed by the UFC. I feel like they throw the library and Fight Pass, but you're right, they don't really talk about this stuff or promote it or whatever, which is weird because it is such a short history. Like it'd be so easy. You're not going back that far to talk about the pioneers of the sport. Like they fought 10 years ago. Like it's kind of a crazy thing where you're right that isn't celebrated, and it's kind of weird that I think it'd be easy to celebrate it almost.
Yeah, it's a strange paradox, I guess, because the sport is still so young, right? Like the sport is still in its infancy, but I feel like the way that the sport has really shifted and is set up, the foundation for it, there is no real looking back. It's always what's next, and there's no real like recollection of a lot of the names from the history books that have been lost. It's unfortunate, and I feel like it sucks that it takes a situation like this, Kid Yamamoto passing, for people to remember him and speak about him in these ways. But I guess that's just how it goes in the fight game.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm actually in the same boat as you with not seeing the diagnosis. I actually didn't see the diagnosis at all or the announcement that he had cancer. So basically I woke up and saw, from being in the MMA world for so long, like my entire Twitter feed was basically blowing up with remembrance posts and highlight reels and people was kind of sharing their words on him. And that's when I realized it happened, was when he was already gone, which is crazy. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that, obviously, because I'm sure if people in the MMA world don't know who that is, and I do understand it's the Conor McGregor thing, people who don't watch MMA definitely don't know who that is. Like the guys who only know McGregor, Chuck Liddell, and Ronda Rousey, like they definitely don't know who that is. So definitely somebody that people should look up and kind of look into his legacy and what he did with the sport and everything. I feel like he was such a legend. I don't know, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
How old was he? 41?
41.
Yeah.
So young.
Crazy. So on that happy note, actually, I'll end on this quick prediction, just because we have to talk about it, and this kind of wraps into what we were just talking about. But while I have you, I guess, quick prediction: Conor McGregor, Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Oh man, I can't give my prediction out yet.
Oh, secret.
I don't even have a prediction for this yet. I need to see a little bit of the lead up. Right now, we're recording this on Wednesday. The press conference is on Thursday. I need to see a little bit from that.
Are they charging for that, by the way? I saw something that said like Conor McGregor hinted that they might be charging for the press conference admission.
No.
Okay.
It's not open to the public, and he tweeted out that no, it's going to be open to the public for anybody who buys my whiskey. And it's just like, all right, that's great. Get a bunch of drunk Conor McGregor fans standing outside the venue trying to barge their way in. I'm sure that can end badly.
What's the? I saw him tweet about the whiskey too. Do you know the price point on that thing? I assume he would go the pricier range of things.
I haven't looked it up, but somebody told me it was $30.
Oh, okay. I might buy some Conor McGregor whiskey then. I know he's trying to decide between a clear bottle or a green bottle. That was the big thing.
Yeah, I saw that.
Big business decisions by McGregor. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm that fight is in 2 weeks, which is crazy, and I'm looking forward to it immensely. But I have no read on it yet. I need some of the lead up to hit me first.
That's my weird thing too, where I'm out of the MMA world for the first time, where like it actually snuck up on me. I was like, oh geez, there's like one card and then a week off and then Conor McGregor, whereas we'd be talking about it every day for like a month if we still had the website. So crazy. But
yeah.
All right, man, I appreciate the time. Thanks for educating me a little bit on the NBA. It's my one black hole in the sports world where I watch football during that time. I watch college basketball, and then that's it, man. I just don't follow the NBA for some reason. So I'm sure I'll lean on you again with big stories and all that. But I appreciate the time, man.
Absolutely, man. It's always fun. I appreciate it.
Bum, 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 bum.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the after show. I'm joined by Nate Zielinski again, who's been doing a lot more writing for The Disorderly, so you can check that stuff out. You said you just finished. Is it an NFL preview post?
NFL preview, yeah, week 3. Diving into, obviously, the news of the week is the Browns ending the streak, 635 days. So talked a little bit about that. And then there's a couple teams that are looking to go 3-0, and I gave my lock for the week in terms of that.
All right, now that's more of a preview. You've been doing that every week, right? For the most part. So that's more of a pitch for the week 4 post because it's probably going to come out after that. Which, by the way, so we can talk about predictions. It's more about, it's going to be like season outlook on stuff because the nature of recording this when we do it's a Saturday. I'm probably releasing it Monday, Tuesday. I've been doing something where I still have to figure out schedule because it's hard with sports. With MMA, when I had that, it was easy because the events are Saturdays. So if I release it Wednesday, I could talk about the previous card, talk about the upcoming card, whatever. But with like football and baseball and whatever, it's hard to pick a day that fits best. So we'll figure that out. But I wanted to start with the McGregor and Khabib presser. We'll go into football. We'll go into the Browns game for sure. I have that written down. We'll do Red Sox clinching. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's a big month. September, October is huge. But let's start with the Khabib McGregor presser. Now we had this problem with Monica as well in episode like 1 or 2. But I'll play a clip. We'll get pulled from YouTube if I put the clip on the YouTube version of this. So if you're listening to the show on YouTube, you'll miss that clip. It'll be like a sound effect or whatever, so you're going to have to look it up on your own. If you listen to the podcast version, I'll pump the audio in so you'll hear that. I don't know why. It's just I think a presser, too, should just be allowed because they want you to spread that. But I don't know. So I'll play that clip right now. I'll play it in the room. I'll play it on the podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, look it up yourself, I guess. So I'll start by saying that my Proper 12 whiskey is on the way. I checked the tracking. It should be Tuesday, I think. So plenty of time to toast McGregor when he's fighting. But talking about that press conference, and I'll say this, the clip that's in there, I guess I could bump it in. I don't know, I'm too lazy. So the clip that you did not hear that's actually my favorite from the press conference is when he's talking about how the Proper 12 whiskey sponsorship is going to be on the canvas. And he's like, right next to his blood. And it was like such a good line. I love that line. So, McGregor does press conferences like no one else. He stirs the excitement around a fight. People who, it's funny too, because you only saw this with maybe Ronda Rousey, not from her pressers at all, but just from the hype around her fighting, or McGregor. It's the only time you really see random people will like text me because I'm the MMA guy, and they'll be like, "Oh, did you see that press conference?" It's the only time MMA breaks the MMA bubble is when McGregor fights these days, anyway. So, what do you think about the press conference? Overall thoughts?
It's unreal. I've never seen anything like it, to be honest. Going into the fights, you kind of like pick and choose who you want to win, obviously, and it just seems like Nurmagomedov is the guy that's in shape. He's been in the octagon for the past 2 years. He's deserved this shot. He kind of has that like quiet, cool confidence that I feel like if I was a fighter, I'd probably be more like Nurmagomedov. But then you just hear Conor McGregor talk, and it's like, how do you not fall in love with that? How do you not root for that? That guy just brings like all the intangibles, and it's a calculated game plan. It sounds like drunk rambling because I think that might be the first time a UFC fighter's brought a bottle of whiskey to the stage. But
I will say Michael Bisping at some like whatever press conference that was, I think before he took the belt, or there's some press conference of Bisping where he was definitely drunk on stage for sure, but he didn't have it in front of him, so it's definitely different.
I do remember that now with the GSP. So
allegedly drunk on stage.
Yeah. So it's just calculated, and you could see like slowly but surely Khabib starts to get a little bit rattled. He gets a little bit more tense, and Conor kind of brings you out of your comfort zone, and the fight definitely starts at the press conference, and he's a master at that. So I thought it was gold. There's so many different lines we can dissect. I wanted to get your opinion on one thing, but we can get initial reaction from you too.
Initial reaction, I just think he's the best in the game at it. And I'll say this, and I've said this story, I don't know if I've said it on this podcast, but I've said it on the MMA one I had multiple times. But I had that, and I think you know it, I had that experience where I was hanging out at a bar with McGregor, super random. It was after his first fight in the U.S. against Max Holloway, and he's just a great dude. And if you've seen like different, so he does this to sell the fight, obviously. He's in promo mode, he's at a press conference, is literally the entire point. And he does this a lot when he's on the mic, and I think a lot of people think he's like this arrogant asshole. But below or behind that, I should say, he is like a good character guy. You see that a lot with stories of him, even the Proper 12, like a percentage that's going to the neighborhood he grew up in and all this stuff. So he's definitely has that too, which is why last night we were just sitting around a campfire talking about like Joe Rogan fights or podcast. And we were talking about how McGregor would be the perfect guest for that because you'd be able to see who he actually is. Like, I specifically remember the Chael Sonnen podcast that he did, the first one with Rogan, when he was like the shit-talking one-liner guy. And when he came on Rogan, he talked for 3 hours. You're like, oh, he's a smart dude. He's a like grounded person. When he's not in promo mode, he's a likable character or whatever, individual. So I think that McGregor would have that same effect if he ever went on Rogan. So I'd love to see that. But Yeah, I love it. I think McGregor's really cocky and arrogant and brash in these lead-ups, in these press conferences, and then afterwards, win or lose, he's usually pretty humble, usually shows a lot of respect. I think about the first Nate Diaz loss, he had like the best press conference ever after that fight, where he's just very humble. He's like, the better man won, whatever. No excuses, and you see that from a lot of people. So I loved it. I think it's just going to do wonders for selling the fight. Not that it needed any help, but yeah, I love McGregor press conferences.
I think at his core, he's just an animal. He has that switch, like you said. It's like when he needs to turn it on, he can become that ruthless assassin that has made him like the most popular UFC fighter that we've ever seen, to be honest. And for him, I can always think of this one line. There's like a YouTube clip that's just Conor McGregor's best moments, and I think it's before Jose Aldo, but he like says it so convincing. He's like, it's no act and it's no game. It's, you just like feel that realness come through for him. Like when he steps foot and sees you eye to eye, he just is ready to kill you. But other than that, yeah, he's got a family now. I mean, he's got a son. The way he acts with his son on Instagram, obviously it's easy to put your best face forward on Instagram, but he seems like a well-rounded guy and just can't get enough of him in the octagon and on the stage for the press conference.
Did you have a question too?
I did, yeah. So the one thing I will say is Conor McGregor turns everything into a circus. And as somebody who follows the MMA so passionately, if you ever got the chance to be in that room, I think a side of you has to be like, wow, this is so entertaining. But there were really no questions of substance asked. And anytime a question did get asked, it kind of just, Khabib would say one word and Conor would cut him off. And those make for amazing sound bites. But how do you feel about, like, there was no real tactics discussed or anything like that?
So I think, in general, that platform, having the press conference or it's live streamed on YouTube and whatever, I think you're not really going to get substance there. It's like the same thing. We talk about this all the time with the way I do podcast interviews. Not me. I'm not like patting myself on the back, but that style of podcast interview where you're having conversations with people and you get more substance. If Rogan ever had McGregor on, I think you get substance there and stuff like that. The press conference is either a circus or it's a snooze fest, but it's always like, I mean, it's questions like give me a prediction of what round you're going to beat Khabib in or whatever. And it's like bullshit. Like, that's a worthless question. It's just, I feel like that stuff is for the sound bites. So I'm fine with it in that format. I wish McGregor did more interviews. He used to go on Helwani's show a lot more. I don't know if he will now that it's ESPN. I mean, he hasn't recently because he's just been, he doesn't need it. He doesn't need the press. But maybe because it's ESPN, he'll go on Helwani's show. I would just love to see him do those kind of interviews more because I think you would get substance. Quick plug for this show, and I hate to do this because guests back out all the time, but Khabib Nurmagomedov's head coach is coming on the podcast later this week. So he'll be on Fight Week. I'll have him on that. So I'll talk to him about like that kind of stuff, substance. Javier Mendez, a.k.a. he's also the head coach of Daniel Cormier, so talk about John Jones, and Luke Rockhold, Cain Velasquez, a bunch of people. So that's a contact from my old show. But he'll be coming on, so we'll talk about that stuff, I guess, next week. But I don't know. I love those press conferences. I think they are a circus, but I think that's what their intention is to be. Like I literally watch it with like popcorn, like looking to laugh, basically.
That makes sense. And I think a final thought maybe could be the 6-fight contract that he just signed. That's a huge deal for the UFC because it shows that he's obviously not back for just the money and he's long-term. Now, what fights do you want to see after the Nurmagomedov? I know the Diaz trilogy is definitely one of the 6 that I would love to see. Do you have any others that you're...
For McGregor?
Yeah.
It sounds... Normally I don't like rematches, but I think so many people have evolved. I think I would love to see him versus Max Holloway again, because that was a great fight. It went the distance early, and Max Holloway was like a kid. He was like 20, 21 years old or something. He's won every fight since then. He's the featherweight champion. He's also a real tall, lanky guy, and he's young, so he's still filling out. He's getting stronger. I think featherweight's a hard cut for him, and will continue to be a harder cut. So if he moved up to 155 and fought McGregor at lightweight, I think that'd be an amazing fight. It would be a super fight. You'd have featherweight versus lightweight, but then also add a new weight class. It's a brand new Holloway. It's obviously a brand new McGregor, too. He's evolved a lot. So I think that would be an amazing fight. I don't know. People are talking about, I don't know. I feel like this isn't even discussed anymore, but there was talk about him versus GSP just because of the super fight element of it. But GSP, I don't know. It'd be interesting if he beat him. It'd be an interesting storyline, but I don't know. I don't really care about that. So yeah, the Diaz trilogy for sure. And I will say my other favorite part of the press conference, and it would never make a highlight video of that like that because it's not, I don't know, like soundbite worthy or whatever, but I love when McGregor, because he is such a shit talker, he talks shit about everybody in the division. I love when he will show fighters respect. And they're talking, somebody asked him about the Poirier-Nate Diaz fight coming up, which is a great fight. And obviously 2 former opponents of McGregor, and he talks shit about all of his opponents and whatever. but he gave those two respect. He's like, that's a great fight. Dustin Poirier, he lost to me but took it on the chin. He's gotten a lot better since then. Nate Diaz is a warrior. I'm looking forward to that fight a lot. Like, he didn't even, there's not a single insult thrown in there, and I love Dustin Poirier. I love Nate Diaz. So like the fact that he threw that in there, just, as the fan in me was just like happy that he showed two of the other fighters I like respect. So I actually like that a lot. But I think either one of those fights, if Dustin Poirier beats Nate Diaz, that versus Conor would be great too. So who knows?
Yeah, those are all extremely interesting. And you're right, the fact that he's not going up against him, you kind of see like his real personality. So I think Tony Ferguson's another name to throw out there. Yeah. He's got a huge fight on the same card. I think it's the fight before.
Yep.
He's fighting Pettis, right? So
co-main event.
We will see, because Ferguson was at the cusp of having his title shot and then that freak injury. But Joe Rogan actually had an interview with Eddie Bravo recently, and Eddie Bravo is just sitting across the table from him, licking his chops like, I know this is the fight the UFC wants, but I'm praying to God one of them gets injured, because Ferguson's ready. He came back from that injury 100% ready to go. So I think Ferguson's another name we can throw around, because that guy is just scary. He kind of combines both of what Nurmagomedov and McGregor do so well with the striking and the ground game. So that'll be interesting.
I forgot all about this, but because that fight is going to be an amazing fight too. I forgot if Anthony Pettis wins, him versus Conor would be ridiculous too, because there's another guy who's well-rounded everywhere. I actually think that's a nightmare matchup. People talk about Khabib being a nightmare matchup because of the wrestling, but as long as Conor can keep it on the feet, he'll be fine. He'll be in good shape. So there's no issue there. If Anthony Pettis is somebody who can hang on the feet and perform there and potentially even beat McGregor in the stand-up, but then if it goes to the ground, he has the jiu-jitsu, he has just the veteran experience being down. I feel like that actually might be more of a nightmare matchup, and size-wise they match up well too, and endurance, everything. That's been a problem with McGregor. That's how Nate Diaz kind of beat him, as he outlasted him. So that'd be an amazing fight too. Actually, that co-main event, McGregor is the one I'm looking forward to, but as far as if you watch both those fights, which one's going to be more entertaining, I almost guarantee you Pettis versus Ferguson's the more fun fight if you didn't have the storylines and all that going into it. So shit, man. Yeah, I forgot about that. It's going to be great. But this is no longer an MMA podcast, so let's move on to other sports. It's bad. It's so easy to lean on that shit, because that's right? Like my experience over the past 5 years. But
I can tell once I get you started too, the wheels just start turning.
Well, also, no one like talks to me about that. Like, everyone's talking about baseball and football and whatever, but I don't have like outlets in life to talk about MMA outside of this podcast. Mm-hmm. So I love it, obviously. But the big news in baseball for both of us anyway, Red Sox clinched the AL East. It's kind of a struggle. Went into Yankee Stadium. It took 3 games, so we needed to win any one of those games, and we would have clinched the AL East. We lost the first 2, pretty bad too. They didn't look good. Finally pulled it out in the 3rd game. It wasn't the cleanest victory, but we ended up just blowing the doors off the place in Game 3 and ended up winning that stuff. So obviously, it's great the Red Sox are the AL East champions. By the time this comes out, I'd be shocked if they already hadn't broke the franchise record, because I think they tied it last night?
Tied it last night.
So any win, and they'll break the franchise record, which is 105 wins is currently the record. And this is coming out like 3 or 4 days from now. So I'd be shocked if we don't break the record by then. But we have the Indians, we have the Yankees. It is possible we lose out. I kind of doubt it. So that's probably coming, though. What are your thoughts on the Red Sox? Obviously, the bullpen's an issue. What are you thinking?
The gold bottles, yeah, it was a long time overdue. I thought we had it in Game 1 against the Yankees, but I believe Neil Walker just jacked a 3-run shot late in the game. I liked what I saw. It was tough because the Red Sox are obviously not playing all of their best players at this point in the season. They're kind of coasting in. They kind of didn't want to give the Yankees momentum, but at the same time, you really got to do what's best for your team. So Mookie Betts and JD Martinez were not always playing. And then in the game we actually won, Chris Sale only threw 3 1/3. He's still on a pitch count. So it's tough to balance that. You're like, wow, yeah, the Yankees kind of gave it to us, that series. But at the same time, I love the fact that when the starting pitching goes awry, our offense is there to pick it up. I think in years past, the power department's been a little bit lacking, but when we can just get into a slugfest and win a game, I think it ended up being 11-6. And Mookie Betts kind of solidified his MVP vote right there for me with that jack against Aroldis Chapman. So that's just good to see when we get down and we're on the road in a tough environment in the playoffs and the bats can just come out and we can put up 10, 11, 12 runs and it really doesn't matter what the starters do. And at the same time, when a guy comes in the 7th with a 3 or 4 run lead, the pressure's way off as opposed to coming in when we're up 1 and the bases are loaded. I think that happened to Heath Hembree, and within the second pitch, he gave up a grand slam in the second game of the series. So overall, I'm still very confident, and at this point in the season, it's just hard to judge when guys aren't going all out and not getting the full 9 innings.
Yeah, and quick shout out to Section 10. They had Mitch Moreland on the podcast, and he said the main difference between this team and last year's team I think a lot of people can see this too, is going from Farrell to Cora, and just the personality of this team and whatever. And he said that the main thing is we'll be down by 3 runs in the 8th inning, and we still fully believe we're going to win. We're not. He said last year felt like a grind. This year feels more fun. It feels like we do have a special team here. We can overcome all these deficits, and they've proven it. If you just look statistically, a lot of come from behind victories this year. So they obviously have that ability, and the lineup is so good. Hopefully, it can make up for the bullpen issues or whatever. But that is, you'll probably have Eovaldi in the bullpen. You have Stephen Wright in the bullpen already. You have some starters that can contribute there to hopefully take some of that. I saw Matt Barnes pitch last night as well, so I don't know if he's coming back or if he's coming back. I know he's hurt, but that adds something else too. You do have the questions of a lot of guys sort of giving up these huge innings in the 7th and 8th, which is obviously terrible. I have full confidence in Craig Kimbrell, by the way. I think a lot of people are questioning him. I think when the pressure's on, that dude's a psychopath. He rises to it. So pressure playoff games, we haven't seen a lot of those out of Craig Kimbrell with the Red Sox, unfortunately, because we haven't gone very deep into the playoffs with him. But I'm fine with him. I'm just worried about those middle relief pitchers a little bit.
Yeah, let's make a run for a change this year. I think all the ingredients are right there. And David Price last year was that guy that came in, the long relief, the middle relief. He went from the starting pitching role to that. Stephen Wright pitched an incredible 3 innings against the Yankees. I think he faced 10 batters and retired 9 of them with ease. So that's a good sign. The knuckleball will be dancing in the postseason. The Red Sox should be excited, and we can do another Section 10 shout-out because Jared Carrabis just leads the major leagues in hilarious tweets. And I think he had one when Chris Sale started the game. They clinched the AL East, and he was like, please, someone pop Chris Sale's bottles for him. Don't let him pick up any bottles. We need that shoulder. We need that elbow. We need Chris Sale firing on all cylinders in the postseason. So I'm excited. They're going to get some well-deserved rest. And I think what they should do is starting that series against the Yankees in Fenway to close out the year, they should lock in and just say, hey, guys, let's go. We've gotten our time off. We've gotten the AL East. We've done this the past 2 seasons. Let's really lock in and focus on the goal at hand, which is bringing the World Series back to Boston.
So I actually forgot, this is another little angle to this, is David Price has been historically terrible against the Yankees, at least this year. I think a lot of people thought, yeah, but he's confident now. The team's confident. He's confident. Let's see what he does against the Yankees. And he got the shit kicked out of him, basically, in Game 2 of that series that just happened. So I don't know. Do you think, how do you feel about David Price's mentality and how he's going to do in clutch games and clutch situations?
I would hope at this point in his career that he's seen it all. And to his defense, I think there was some talk about the Yankees just destroying him, but sandwiched in between that talk earlier in the year and this past game, I think he did have a brilliant start against them where it was like, oh, wow, David Price can do it against the Yankees. So the postseason is just one of those things where if you don't have it on that one day, you're screwed. And if you do have it, you're fine. Hopefully we don't run into the Yankees for David Price's sake. I think that's clear, but I still have all the faith in him. It's not like, oh, crap, we have to avoid pitching David Price against the Yankees. I don't think it's gotten to that crisis point, but shorter leash, obviously. So in the regular season, we let the Yankees hit 3 home runs off of him. In the second inning of a postseason game, if he lets up a 2-run home run, Cora might go to the bullpen right away and say, hey, Stephen Wright, what do you got for me tonight? So the leash aspect of it changes it a lot. So we'll see. I have all the confidence in David Price. He's righted the ship for me. I know there was a bunch of controversy surrounding the contract and the kind of person he is, but let's give him the ball game too and see what he's got. We paid him $217 million. He also came out this season and said, I want to stay in Boston long term. So he's got the most to lose. Let's see what he's got.
So as a lifelong Cowboys fan and a big Tony Romo apologist, I love that guy, and I feel like I've had to deal with these narratives of someone chokes in big situations, and it's usually not entirely accurate. Like you mentioned, actually, if you look at David Price, he's one of the best starters in baseball, but people are like, oh, he chokes. It's like, does he, or is he one of the best starters in baseball? Like, what are you talking about? And same thing with Craig Kimbrell, actually, where they're like people have all these complaints about Craig Kimbrell and what he brings to the table, and he might give up a save every now and then. He's literally the best closer in baseball. Mm-hmm. So people are nitpicking when they complain about things, and just like the Romo narrative, I'll argue with anyone. I think he's great. That narrative's not entirely true. So with the same situation with David Price, I think that he has this reputation of being someone who chokes, but you definitely got to start him in the postseason. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Unfortunately, if he has a bad start against the Yankees in the postseason, it's going to go right back to that, where it's like, why would you play? Of course, the Yankees have his number or whatever, but that's not people have bad starts every now and then. You can't really complain about somebody who is one of the best starters in baseball once again. But we will get to football now. Thursday Night Football. The Browns beat the Jets, their first win since Christmas Eve, I think, of 2016, they said, which is something ridiculous. It's like 630-something games. So it's ridiculous. Like, if you're not going to get excited about that, unless you're a Jets fan, you have to be rooting for the Browns in that situation. You have to be excited that they won. I mean, they have this crazy loyal fan base. You see certain teams where people just don't show up, like the Chargers. The Browns are the worst team in football for a number of years. Like, I'd have to go back to probably the Jim Brown days is probably when they were good, but they've been irrelevant since. Basically the laughing stock of the league since, and their fans still turn out, they still show up, they still get passionate about the games. So you just had to be excited for Cleveland getting that win.
Yeah, back in the late 80s, they had a little bit of a run with Bernie Kosar at quarterback. The drive, actually, what the game that made John Elway famous came at the Browns' expense in the AFC Championship game, I think it was. He took the Denver Broncos 98 yards, and that was kind of John Elway's coming out party. I had two friends that were in Cleveland. Steve Monahan lives out there, and Kevin Babcock, one of my roommates, was actually at the game. So that had to be an unbelievable experience. I don't think we've gotten a text from them since Thursday night.
Drunk.
So I hope they're alive. We have seen Snapchats, but the city of Cleveland just had to be on fire Thursday night. They had the Bud Light fridges across the city that were finally opened, and it was kind of that breaking the seal moment, if you will. I think with Baker Mayfield coming into play, Tyrod Taylor, 10 lackluster quarters. He had the concussion late in the second quarter, so I think it was the perfect segue for Baker Mayfield to just take the reins and run with it. And the Cleveland Browns just look like a more comfortable, more confident team when he's playing quarterback. So, hey, at 1-1-1, they're in the thick of things in their division. They need a little bit of help. They need Cincinnati to start playing like the Cincinnati Bengals again, but
they will too. I think I don't think Cincinnati is sustainable. I think they'll fall apart. Also, they don't have Mixon for the next 2 weeks. But yeah, no, all right, so I guess the question there then is, what do you think about Baker Mayfield's entrance? First of all, I saw that, what's his name, Hugh Jackman? He said that he has to look Jackson. Is Hugh Jackman the Wolverine?
That would be pretty badass if he was their coach.
I don't know. I mean, coincidence? I don't know. But he said he had to look at the tape and decide who he wanted to start on Sunday, which is, it's got to be, I mean, you got to say that, but that has to be a joke, right? Like, I think granted, the Browns are famous for making terrible franchise decisions, but I think Baker Mayfield has to take over. He's a hot hand right now. The fans are finally excited about him. I, by the way, love Tyrod Taylor. He's one of my favorite people in the NFL, but he's not a starter, superstar quarterback. He's not going to be. So I think Baker Mayfield has to be the guy you play now.
I think that's the consensus around the league. It's just a tough spot for Tyrod Taylor to be in, especially the way he was treated last year. He pretty much dragged the Buffalo Bills to a playoff spot. They benched him for Nate Peterman, who throws 5 picks, and then the coach has no choice but to go back to Tyrod Taylor and say, hey, can you finish the season on a strong note? They almost beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. That game was absolutely ugly, but the Jags only won 10-3. And then he comes into a situation with the Cleveland Browns, and he just is he's played like he's looking over his shoulder. He's like, my next mistake is going to be my last.
Right.
And like everybody in Cleveland, no matter how much they like me, they want this to be Baker Mayfield's team. It's a tough spot to be in, but I think I did a little bit of research and wrote about Tyrod Taylor before the season, and I think with the 1-1-1 start, this pretty much his NFL record is hovering around 22-1 as an NFL starter. So he's average, and the Cleveland Browns saw an electric performance from Baker Mayfield, and they want more of that. So I think you got to go Mayfield.
So from a fantasy perspective, too, I drafted Baker Mayfield in the 16th round in a keeper league. So that's like my little hope is that he becomes, one of the better starting quarterbacks. Especially, you got to think the Browns, their defense has improved, obviously, but they're still the Browns, so they're going to be in shootouts a lot, I think, and hopefully that helps. The other thing with Baker Mayfield, because I think Tyrod Taylor is good, but he had no time. He's under pressure. He got slammed into the ground like 30 times that's an exaggeration, but in less than half of football. So I think that Tyrod Taylor would be very serviceable in certain teams. You make the argument he's better than Dak. I'm not even going to get into that, but whatever, I'm a hater. But I think that Tyrod Taylor is a very good quarterback, but in this team, Baker Mayfield's mobility and his ability to have a quick release, I think, kind of makes up for some of the offensive line problems. He is under pressure, but it didn't look like he was under pressure because he was able to get rid of the ball so easily and move around when he had to. Not that Tyrod Taylor's not mobile, but I think Baker Mayfield's a good fit for this team because it makes up for the holes they have. And I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but like they could win the division, honestly. So I think a lot of people get caught up in the Hard Knocks fever, but I actually think that it almost went opposite, where people we're like, oh, they're overhyped because of Hard Knocks, and it's like, no, they actually are a pretty decent team. I think they have a good receiving core. Baker Mayfield makes up for a lot of stuff. The defense is good. I think the Browns, I don't know, they're a problem on some level. I don't know. They probably, I don't know. They're the Browns, so we'll see. We'll see if that was a fluke. And the Jets are the Jets too, so like I'm not surprised that they're the one team to lose to the Browns too. So it's kind of a perfect storm of just like loser franchises. But I don't know, man.
Yeah, and we'll give Denzel Ward a little bit of love, too. There was a lot of head-scratching going on when the Browns actually had 2 top 4 draft picks. They chose Denzel Ward with the 4th. He's a cornerback out of Ohio State, and he made the play of the game. It was 14-6 at one point, and the Jets were deep in their own territory. They completed about a 20-yard pass, and Denzel Ward stripped a fumble that kind of set the Cleveland Browns up inside their own red zone. So early returns from him and Baker Mayfield, both of those guys shined. And going forward, the Browns are looking like they've got some talent, and you can't be terrible forever. I don't know if this year is going to come to fruition and they're going to make the playoffs, but the days of 2-14 and 1-15 and even last year 0-16, I think those days are over for sure in Cleveland.
Well, also, I think, so the NFL is a quick turnaround with stuff like that because you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars who were punchline for a long time, and then, they almost went to the Super Bowl last year. So that is possible, and it seems like this is kind of on the upswing, so it's all good. But we'll talk about our teams. This is going to be the ice-cold takes section of the podcast because by the time you listen, it's already over. So, I would be somewhat measured with what you say, but what do you think about the Giants? They're playing
the Texans,
right? Yeah, and the Cowboys have Seattle, so... What time's your game? 1 o'clock?
Are you guys on the road?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're 1 o'clock.
Yeah, we're at 4, I think. But so I'll just start real quick with the Cowboys, I guess. Well, like I said, you already know what happened if you're listening to this, so whatever. But this is what I'm thinking as of Saturday. I actually think the Cowboys, I think they're terrible. I think they're slightly better than the Giants. I think Giants are terrible, and the Cowboys are also terrible. I guess that was my takeaway from the Giants-Cowboys game. And we can get into that if you want to, but what I will say, the one silver lining for the Cowboys, I think their defense is really solid. The pass rush is there. I think I really like Byron Jones at cornerback. This is the first year he's playing there, and Odell Beckham didn't do anything. They had some, even I forget. There's some stat I wrote it in my my recap post for the UConn blog. But there's some stat where the Giants, Saquon Barkley, broke a record for having, I think, 14 receptions. And whatever yardage he got, it was the smallest amount of yards with 14 receptions minimum or whatever. So it's like literally that means they let him catch it. He's a running back, so he can catch those little, halfback screens or little throws down the middle, but they shut him down. He wasn't breaking anything. It was very good defense, honestly. And I think there's some other stat. They're the first team ever to get 6 sacks with 6 different players on Eli. So the defense is good. I know that has a lot to do with the Giants too, but the defense is good against Carolina too. And I think that the Seattle Seahawks have a huge problem with their offensive line, and Russell Wilson's constantly been under pressure. He's throwing a lot of picks, which is kind of uncharacteristic for him. So I do think that the Cowboys will do well against the Seahawks on defense, but can they win that game? I don't know. I think the Seahawks are probably a better team, but they're 0-2, so you never know. It'd be winnable, and that'd be crazy because we'd be 2-1 and in first place of the NFC East, which is, I don't know. I think it's a terrible division, but I think the Cowboys are awful, and I don't know. So it's all a shit show. But go ahead.
I think it's the lesser of two evils for the Cowboys because you don't get always the big plays. Obviously, Tavon Austin burning the Giants, which ended up being the deciding factor. The Giants did claw their way back in, although it was kind of embarrassing and tough to watch. But
right at the beginning, right?
Yeah, the Cowboys don't make a lot of mistakes. So Dak Prescott, for as anemic as he might make the offense look sometimes, he doesn't throw interceptions. Ezekiel Elliott rarely fumbles. And then you've got a team like the Seahawks who they have that lightning in a bottle ability, but Russell Wilson's also throwing pick sixes and getting sacked, and they have those bonehead penalties where Pete Carroll's on the sidelines just looking pissed off, scratching his head like, what the heck are we doing out there, guys? So the Giants, on the other hand, some losses hurt more than others, and going in after week 1, I was like, you know what? We lost to the Jags. It was a close game, right. 20-15. We had it right there. We were one possession away, and then against the Cowboys, it was one of those things where the bully has his arm stretched out and the kid is just swinging his arms and he just can't get to him, so it's tough to watch. Odell Beckham Jr. was practically invisible, so I don't know where we go from here. Houston's going to be a tough opponent. It's in their building. They're 0-2 as well, so they're going to be very, very desperate for a win. I think what it comes down to for the Giants is just put your head down and realize that you're in the NFC East, and 9-7 can very well win this division.
Yeah, I think it will.
The jury is still out on Carson Wentz. I love the talent that he has, but he's coming off the ACL and he's starting in week 3. So the Eagles are not striking fear into anybody at the moment. The Redskins just lost to the Colts at home 21-9, and the Cowboys have to travel up northwest to play Seattle. So the division's wide open. I'm not really going to focus on our win total anymore. You just got to take it game by game. Get Odell involved in the game, obviously. Like, that has to be a thing. And I will give the defense some slack. We're missing cornerback Eli Apple, who's on the other side of Janoris Jenkins. He's had a promising start to his third year. And then Olivier Vernon, who's our best defensive end, hasn't played a snap yet in this season. So the defense has some holes. Let's see if we can get that filled up. A win against Houston would be huge. And at this point, I'm just putting my hands together, looking up at the sky and saying 9-7.
Yeah, and Houston, by the way, I feel like Deshaun Watson's really underwhelmed as well. So they're another. I think the Cowboys play them Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football coming up at some point. So we'll see. But as shocking as it was that the Eagles won a Super Bowl last year, I'd be extra shocked if an NFC East team won the Super Bowl this year. It'd be shocking. I think it's a terrible division. I think it's. We always are that division that's super close, and 9-7 or 10-6 or whatever usually wins, which is crazy because a lot of other divisions, like, you'll get like the Patriots getting 13 wins a season or something, and it's crazy. But yeah, I think the NFC East is pretty weak. But the one game that we can talk about, because I think I'm going to release this Sunday night, Monday morning, is the Monday night game. So you have Ryan Fitzpatrick, aka Fitzmagic, and the Bucks. They're 2-0. They're the shock of the season, I think. A lot of people thought they were one of the worst teams in the season. They went into New Orleans and did great, and then obviously went 2-0. And actually, I wasn't going to do this, but yeah, I'll look it up. I'll play the video of his press conference where he's basically dressed like McGregor. It's amazing. But they're facing the Steelers, who have all sorts of problems right now, but we'll get into that after this clip. So Ryan Fitzpatrick's electric. Like, maybe the most likable personality in football right now, I would say. The other question is, when Jameis Winston comes back, 'cause that's been the question, do you ride the hot hand or you put in Jameis Winston, who's like their franchise guy? Because I think from what I've seen just on Twitter and stuff, I think Bucs fans are split. I think the obvious answer from an outside perspective is Fitzpatrick. You can't bench him now. This happens all the time. It happened with Kaepernick taking Alex Smith's role when he was out. It happened with Dak Prescott and Tony Romo. Granted, that was a lot longer of a stretch. But I think you have to, no matter what, I think you have to ride the hot hand until you don't anymore. But I don't know. Where do you stand on that?
Are we recording this again?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, cool.
Well, hopefully.
I just wanted to double check. Sweet. All right. Honestly, I don't know if you caught it from that clip, but him wearing Deshaun Jackson's clothes just says it all. The wide receivers are saying there's no way you can take him out. His stats when he throws to Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson are like 95% completion, 200 yards, and like 4 touchdowns in 2 weeks. So I think inside the Bucs locker room, it's clear as day. They want Ryan Fitzpatrick. How can you not start him? He's leading the league in yards. It's only week 2, but he's in the MVP discussion. He's out playing Brady. He's out playing Roethlisberger. So it's pretty much Fitzpatrick and Mahomes. If you've got quarterback stock, you want to buy it there. If they play Jameis Winston, I really think it'll be one of the biggest surprises to me for the NFL season. What do they owe Jameis Winston? They haven't made the playoffs yet with him as a quarterback. They don't really have a signature win with him as their quarterback. He's only getting in trouble. It's not like he's coming off of a bad luck injury or anything like that. It's just Jameis Winston getting in his own way. We saw it at FSU, and he's continuing to doing it at Tampa. So I think with a veteran guy that has the team on a roll, there really is no way you can bench Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think even if he loses to the Steelers on Monday Night Football, you still got to ride his hot hand. If the Bucs fall to below 500 at any point in the season, I can see them going back to Jameis. But right now at 2-0, everybody's happy. Stay with Fitzpatrick. I mean, the guy is just, as you said, the only word that comes to mind is electric. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, and I don't want to focus on football, but I do think Jameis Winston, beyond the character, it seems like he might be a bad person. So it's there's a lot of
it's all there. It's all there. He comes across. He does a good job of hiding it and comes across as the aw shucks country boy, but just time after time, it's just like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, Fitzpatrick is pretty beloved wherever he's played. He's obviously been all over the place, but it's fun to see him having this sort of success. Obviously, the chemistry is there. You see it with press conferences like that. Like, it's just hilarious that he did. Even like the little one-liners, like, is any of that yours? Like the chest hair. Like, I love Fitzpatrick. Also, one of the highest Wonderlic scores of all time, if I remember correctly. So super smart dude.
Yep.
I don't know how that factors in, but it makes me like him too. So I don't know. Yeah, I've never been a big fan of Jameis Winston just as a person from the Florida State days. So whatever, I'm happy. I hope Fitzpatrick leads them to the Super Bowl. It'd be great. It'd be a great story.
That's actually the leader in the clubhouse for me for a Halloween costume. I'm growing out the beard. I'm getting the shades. I've got a bomber jacket that I can kind of zip 2/3 of the way up. I'm going for it, I think.
That's great, man. I feel like you have to tell people if you're Fitzpatrick or Conor McGregor, though, because I feel like both those things play.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was a great look. Also, I was worried that everyone... It's going to be a tough costume to pull off, but I thought people would dress as like the box from the Kanye video.
Yes. There's going to be so many of those.
A lot of those, yeah. Which is just a pain in the ass. I mean, knocking stuff over all the time, but it's pretty easy. Cardboard box and like a giant oversized shirt is going to be pretty easy to make.
I think a 60-inch TV will do the trick for you. If you find that cardboard box, then you're all set. It's going to be hilarious.
And that's actually a good transition, unplanned, because you brought the Halloween thing. This is proof that this is improv. It's just my superior hosting skills, but... That reminds me of the duck from Oregon who came out in the Kanye outfit. And then that reminds me of what I do have written down. I think if you explain your segue, by the way, it like ruins it, but I don't give a shit. So College Game Day today was talking about Oregon, right? That's pretty good. That's well done.
Yeah.
So I was watching that. Now, I don't watch, and this is also going to be outdated as far as talking about the games coming up or whatever, so we can kind of scoot around that. You could talk about what teams you think are going to be in the playoffs and whatever. But the quick thing on College Game Day, and Barstool brought this up, but I actually haven't seen College Game Day until this year. Lee Corso is like, he's really showing his age. It's tough to watch. He can't like complete sentences and stuff, and it's just like a sad thing to watch. I love Lee Corso, but he seems so much older than even he did last year. And at some point, you got to kind of move on. I know he's a legend, but it's like, I don't know. It's uncomfortable to watch, I think. So I don't know if you've seen his talking performances, but they're like,
damn, that's bad news. I have yet to tune in. I will start though, because that's something. As an aspiring commentator, that's something you pick up on very quickly when like a guy is stumbling out of the gate, and you can kind of hear that he's unsure of himself, or if a guy's long in the tooth. That's too bad. I thought you were going to go a different direction because there was a picture today. College Game Day is notorious for the signs that students hold up. And they had a picture of the Oregon Duck. The caption was "Shoot or Shoot," and it's just a sign with the duck, and it was like, "At Rihanna, sup." I thought that's where you're going, but damn, that's bad news about Lee Corso. Yeah, the headgear is definitely something that's going to be tough to retire, but if it's time to move on, it's time to move on.
It's just tough because, so in this is Barstool's take, I'm repeating it. It was either El Prez or Big Cat. Somebody had this take on like the rundown, but they were saying that what Kirk Herbstreit does is like the most. They're like, if they can give out Emmys for that, because he's basically holding Lee Corso's hand and kind of making him still serviceable and whatever. But it's like Lee Corso's clearly he's lost his step, he's slowed down. I mean, it's just human nature. You get older, that's what happens. But Kirk Herbstreit really kind of still makes it all work, and it's a hell of a job by Kirk. They were saying it's like, when you're talking to your very old like grandfather or something, you got to kind of like lead him with the questions and get him talking, but also like whatever. It was kind of that with Kirk Herbstreit, I guess. And I heard this take earlier in the week, and I hadn't watched it yet. So this morning I just happened to have Game Day on, and I was like, oh, I see exactly what they're talking about.
Kind of like jog his memory and get him going in the right
or
direction.
if he kind of starts to ramble, kind of reel him back in, like things like that. So it's actually. It's very commendable by Kirk Herbstreit, who also is
he's one of the best in the business. Yeah,
absolutely. And then Lee Corso, I love him, and it's tough because he and there's certain people like blank on his name right now though. Who's the college basketball guy who talks like he's got like marbles in his mouth?
Dick Vitale, maybe.
Nope. The older guy. Shoot, I can't think of his name.
Damn. You stumped me too.
Yeah, whatever. Not important, but there are older guys who they're old.
Maybe Brent Musburger. Is that who you're thinking of? Damn.
I don't think it's college football. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, there's guys like that who are old and quote unquote legendary, but it's like I don't have any like I don't know. They're a little overrated. They're just legends. That's like why they're on the panel. But Lee Corso I actually loved. Like, he had such an excitement to College Game Day and just football in general. I don't watch a lot of college football, so he doesn't cross paths with me that much. But just even highlights I've seen and stuff, I just love that guy.
Not so fast.
Yeah, exactly.
That's his line right there.
Yeah, I love that guy, and he still has the energy too. Like I was watching today, he'll get all excited about stuff, but it's just like I don't know. But anyway, I do not watch college football like at all. If you have any college football takes, throw them out there. Who do you think? Who do you think's overrated? Who do you think is going to potentially win it all this year? What do you think?
It's funny that we're watching this right now. The number 2 team in the country, Georgia's throttling Missouri a little bit. They're missing some opportunities, but they're up 20-7. The college football season, it's tough for me to watch at this point because I'm not the biggest Alabama fan, but it's been clear that it's Alabama and everybody else. There was a huge SEC battle before we went to the Beer Fest. Actually, we were watching that Auburn-LSU game.
Oh, yeah.
LSU actually came back and won 22-21 on a last-second field goal. So the SEC is going to come down to Georgia, LSU, and Alabama. It looks like they're just a powerhouse conference. It's kind of unfair to the rest of the country, but you've got Clemson. You've got the controversy surrounding Ohio State. They're still playing very well, but Urban Meyer in the news again for all the wrong reasons. He came back in his press conference. Everybody kind of just saw through him and was like, you really don't give a shit, dude. Like, you're just a terrible person, kind of like the Jameis Winston thing. Like, you can say all the right things if you want, but people can really see that. So I think those are going to be the top 5 teams to watch. You got Alabama, Georgia, LSU, if they can make a run, because when the poll comes out, they're probably like going to be top 10, top 6, and then Ohio State. So Wisconsin got upset. They lost to BYU for the first time in decades, I think it was. So Wisconsin was going to be another hopeful up there. But yeah, they're dropping like flies. The one thing I do like about the college football season now is one loss doesn't kill you. The season has kind of morphed into like from 10 games to now if you play through the college football playoff, you're playing like 14 or 15. So teams can come back from one win, but and a little bit of betting. If you want to put all your money on Alabama, do it, because even if the line says like 28 or 31, they've covered in every game this season. They are just monsters. And Tua Tagovailoa, he's the hero from the championship game. He hasn't lost a step, so it'll be interesting because he's kind of smaller. He's got like a Marcus Mariota build to him. He's a lefty. We'll see if an NFL team takes a shot on him when he's ready to enter the NFL. But as of right now, Alabama hasn't had a quarterback like this for a while. That he's so dynamic, and it's just tilting the playing field where it's not even close. Like, just defense alone, Alabama can win the national championship. Offense and defense, they can win the national championship by 30 points.
Yeah, for sure. There's your college football take that I know nothing about. That's the theme of this episode, by the way. I had Shaun Al-Shatti on. People listening already heard that, but he's like a big MMA fighter or writer, senior writer at MMAfighting.com. But he also started as an NBA writer. He was a beat reporter for whatever the SB Nation site is. I'm sure I said it in the intro retroactively, but whatever the SB Nation site is that covers the Phoenix Suns, because he's from Arizona.
Nice.
So he covered that, but we talked about NBA, and I know nothing. Like, I know college basketball. I know nothing about the NBA, so we talked about all this stuff, and I was completely out of the bubble. That's how I feel about college football, too. But
he's got to be pretty excited then, the Phoenix Suns.
He is excited. What happened?
They have a team. I mean, their number 1 draft pick, DeAndre Ayton.
He really wants Jimmy Butler to. No, sorry. He wants Jimmy Butler to be part of a 3-way trade where they get somebody else.
Interesting.
I don't know. Yeah, there you go. There's my background.
Devin Booker's rounding into form as a superstar in the NBA. They got the number 1 pick, DeAndre Ayton. And then the underrated signing of the offseason was Trevor Ariza, who's kind of like a 3-and-D guy on the wing. He's one of those glue guys where you're like, you go down the roster and it's like, you want that guy on your team if you're going to win a championship.
Phoenix was last place last year, right? At least last in the West.
They were, yeah. They're far from a championship, but Ariza's like a glue guy, a veteran guy that can be infectious for the younger guys. So Phoenix, they have a chance at the 8 seed, though. The Western Conference is stacked beyond belief, but the Phoenix Suns have a chance to make a run at the playoffs, so that'll be good to watch.
Nice, for sure. Another sport, by the way, where the turnaround is very possible fast. I think about like the Bobcats, or whatever, Hornets now, but the Bobcats went from literally the worst team in NBA history to being in the playoffs, 2 years later or whatever? Shout out Kemba Walker.
Hell yeah.
And this is allowed to be over too, but the 4 o'clock game for UConn football is at Syracuse. We finally won a game last week. It was unbelievable. It was against URI. There was not defense to be had in the entire game on both sides, but I'll take it. And Dave Pindell is actually a super exciting person to watch. Like, even if you aren't into like UConn sucks, right? Mm-hmm. But if you can watch David Pindell like just run around and have a great offense, it at least makes it exciting. We haven't had an exciting quarterback maybe ever. Orlovsky.
Never. No, I mean, Dan Orlovsky is many things. Exciting is not one of them.
You know, he's part of like Trump's cabinet or something. I don't know. Yeah, I'll show you the story later. But he was like one of like Trump's like insider, like part of his cabinet when he was already not cabinet, but like his like circle of trust basically. And then he got kicked out of it recently. So,
that's wild.
Yeah, like the Barstool wrote some article on it. It's like the former UConn like football quarterback or whatever became part of like Trump's like circle of friends, which is crazy. But anyway. So shout out to Dave Orlovsky too. My whole interaction with him is basically playing Madden games and then just like taking whoever I have for a quarterback, trading him for somebody else, and then just putting Dave Orlovsky on the team because I love it. But
Yeah, that 67 rating, he's probably nasty. And
yeah. Well, it provides a challenge for me too. I feel like I play on too easy of a difficulty, so then you got to
there you go.
Provide yourself a challenge.
Level the playing field. Yeah,
it's definitely way too much UConn football talk for one general sports podcast. But that'll do it for me. So rate, review, subscribe. The website is thedisorderly.com. It's the best in sports entertainment. You can find us on Twitter at Disorderly Media, Facebook at Disorderly ENT. My name is Nick Risner. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Risner, NickRizner. Also doing a lot of writing for the site, as is Nate, and I think that'll do it. So I hope you guys appreciate, or I hope you like this episode. I think we're gonna do like weekly episodes of the sport podcast, but it's tough to bring in guests and figure that stuff out. But so far it's been weekly, and I got 3 interviews lined up right now. So like I said, I'll hold back, but hopefully next week will be Javier Mendez, who is the head coach of Khabib Nurmagomedov, on the Conor McGregor versus Khabib fight week. So I appreciate you guys, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your week.